Of, off, on to Onward? That don't work. Plus, what's that Matt hears? Is it the call of the wild? That and more on today's episode of The Reel Review, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Reel Review.
Welcome to The Reel Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios. We get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt Manticore. Hey.
Ooh, Manticore. Hey.
Yes, don't sting me with your stingy tail.
And everybody, I'm here with Joel Trash Unicorn Cunningham.
Trashy. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I thought you were going to go Trash
it's
Panda.
In the trailer.
But
yeah,
now we
but
have
that's
Trash Unicorns, too.
But those aren't in, they're kind of like the Trash Pandas of that universe.
Yeah. I think that's true. I would have actually really enjoyed...
Because in our world, pandas are like kind of majestical, right?
Yes, yeah.
But like the Trash Panda version being a raccoon. In that world, it's unicorn is the Trash Panda.
I couldn't decide if they were like a raccoon or like a rat or what exactly they were going for with those. But
they like hiss.
Yeah, they like hiss at you. I thought
like
that was pretty fun. I kind of want there to be like a standalone like Trash Unicorn like short film,
like
I
series.
think that would actually be
like,
fun. Yeah,
like Forky had a series, so they're like, let's give the Trash.
Yeah, like maybe he's the
one.
best Trash Unicorn out of all the other Trash Unicorns, and he's like he goes on his own magical adventure or something like that. I think that would be pretty funny. I don't know how you'd spin
magical
that,
Trash
go
Unicorn.
I would have liked that. I didn't. We can talk about it later. So
sure, no worries.
Before we get into that, why don't we introduce ourselves as well as the podcast a little bit here? So, as stated, I am Joel Cunningham. That's Matt. Hey, we're The Reel Review. We like to review things on the basis of kind of how we see films and media. Matt tends to be a bit more of the fan, fun perspective, whereas I tend to be more of the critical perspective. And we put those together to kind of give you the two sides of the coin and do our reviews that way. So, Matt, why don't you give our listeners some ways to get connected while I get a sip of coffee?
Y'all can get connected with us a number of different ways. One of them is you can go onto the interwebs with, I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. It's going to be reelreviewmedia.com, in which that will actually connect you to all of our podcasts, but also all of the social media platforms as well. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which is just simply at Reel Review Media.
Yeah.
And you can connect with us there. Also, more importantly, ask us questions because we would love to answer your questions. And you can do that at our Gmail. Send questions to our Gmail account, which is reelreviewmedia@gmail.com. And that's how you can do that.
Awesome. Well, today, I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. We're going to be talking about two films, as mentioned. Onward, which was the big Disney Pixar release of the weekend, and then one Matt had a chance to see a while back, but we just didn't have a good slot to review it. Film called Call of the Wild. So kind of getting into Onward, I'm going to give you the little spiel a little up front, and then we can kind of talk about it. Set in the suburban fantasy world, two teenage elf brothers embark on a quest to discover if there is still magic out there. Director is Dan Scanlon. It has the voice acting of Chris Pratt, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Octavia Spencer, Tom Holland, and John Ratzenberger. So we have two of the Marvels kind of popping up in this. I was going to say at the beginning
Break it down.
I don't know what... I'm assuming we all got the same little intro movie with The Simpsons.
Right.
Yes.
I was not expecting that.
I was not expecting that.
I haven't seen something like that in a while.
Right. And I was kind of like, whoa, Simpsons are Disney now, which makes sense.
They
why
introduced The Simpsons. They said Disney welcomes The Simpsons.
Right. I would have rather had maybe one of the
a Pixar short.
Unicorn shorts or something. Yeah, Pixar short.
Right.
I didn't dislike it. And I'm sure everybody that's a Simpson fan was probably oogling.
Sure.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I would have rather had like a short.
My favorite part was the train bit at the end.
The train bit.
I was like, meh, it's good.
It was kind of like, you're relying on me to know The Simpsons a little bit to enjoy this. And I think one of the things that I've loved so much about their shorts before the other films is they're just freestanding awesomeness. And you just get this awesome little adventure before you get the main
adventure.
Yeah, the main meal. Right. So anyway, Matt, what were your thoughts on this film? Just kind of general? Yeah.
I thought it was, well, first of all, I didn't think the marketing was like super great for this movie.
Yeah.
But I liked it way more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
There's a couple times I felt the emotion, but got a little misty-eyed towards the end.
Yeah.
A little frustrated too, but I wouldn't fault like the story. I knew what they were going for. But I think overall, I was pleasantly surprised and happy with this movie.
Yeah.
I will say, the character that Chris Pratt plays is like totally Chris Pratt. Like it's him. It's embodied as a mythical elf, basically. I'm like, that's what Chris Pratt would act like in that world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, really enjoyed it. What did you feel about it? Did you feel pretty?
I'd say I kind of felt similarly as far as the marketing goes. I think I've seen stuff like this enough now where it's like, oh, imagine if like fantasy characters really still existed and what they would be like in modern society.
What if an inanimate object could talk?
Yeah, I've seen enough of that now to not think that this was like the most inspired genius idea.
Sure.
So that being said, I don't think the trailers really did a lot of justice as far as what type of story this was going to be telling.
Same.
I think I had a better experience with it than I was expecting as well. I was expecting to come out of it kind of being like, lower tier Pixar, because we've had some of those now, especially like, the car films and
Good Dinosaur even.
Good Dinosaur even, and there's a couple of their handfuls in there that I personally am not a huge fan of that other people might have really liked.
Right.
This ended up being closer to the middle, high middle of the pack for me. I don't think it's a bad film. I think it's especially good as well if you have kids, maybe young boys. It kind of teaches them some good lessons. And I think that's one of the things that Pixar can do really well. And when they include in their films that you get something of. And they're like human films in the sense that you don't have to be like this kind of person to get something from it. You can pretty much any person could take something from this film in the message of it and really enjoy that. And it resonate with them.
I agree.
I love the voice acting for the most part. I thought that the voice acting to the characterization fit very well. It felt cartoony without feeling cartoonish. I wouldn't say that this was a huge, in my personal view, step forward in regards to just the look of the Pixar animation stuff. Like Toy Story 3 or 4, I should say, some of the shots were like, wow, that looks like real life. Even Good Dinosaur, some of the shots were like, that looks real life. This definitely looked a lot more cartoonish.
I think it was meant to be that way.
I think so too. I think they did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Because we know in a way that they can feel more real. And
Totally,
I think they did the preview. Is it Soul?
Yeah.
So they did the preview for that, and some of the shots that were in there, I'm like, wow, that looks like it could be real, very real.
Right. Yeah.
It could have that imbued sense of being because it takes place in like a real world type thing. So maybe with this one, they decided to go more cartoony because it's a mythical story.
I think so.
That I would say, I think that, I think that's about as far as I would go on like my strong positives.
Okay.
A lot of the other stuff is kind of more middle, like and then there's a couple bads. So do you want to get into that?
Yeah, let's do it. Strong positives. Start off with that. Just positives in general.
Yeah,
Chris Pratt's character was really good. Really, really enjoyed that. There was some cool action stuff that happened. I think more towards the end that I really liked. Actually, the end of the movie is probably like the last third of the movie is probably my favorite. For sure. Yeah. Because I felt kind of like mediocre up until that point.
It feels like it finishes strong.
Yeah, it finishes really strong.
Yeah.
There are some like cultural things that I liked. Like there's an element of like one of the brothers is like into D&D stuff, and like the other kid's like, get up, stop,
Yeah.
I feel like they could have, I think they explained, I like the idea. I really like the idea of like, we just going so accustomed to the easy thing that we stopped even trying for this other thing, the magic side of things even more.
Yeah.
I like that, but I don't think they actually dove into that
They didn't. That was kind of one of my issues.
Right.
I feel like it was a very cheap, simple way of just kind of offhandedly going like, oh, well, you can fly, but we have planes now. Like you're a pixie.
Right.
Like that was a character in the film. But like, why wouldn't you still fly?
Right.
Like, you're not going to spend a bunch of money to get on an airplane. It might be easier, but you'd still fly from here to there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
You wouldn't walk. You would say. So there was like things like that weren't explained. And
or ride a motorcycle with 20 other pixie
There
friends.
was a core to this film that I felt like was, instead of being like 2 layers deep, it was like kind of 1 layers deep.
Yeah.
And it felt like if it had taken the time to be 2 layers deep, it would have added a lot to this film.
Yeah, totally.
And probably would have been a lot higher to me. So specifically, I think if they had come up with a way, like if you think of even the movie Up,
Yeah.
Up starts with its own story that kind of creates this deeper narrative that plays out over the course of the film, not just in the main character, but also in a side character that ends up becoming like kind of the main antagonist of the film. This film didn't have anything like that. It was basically just like, hey, there was magic, but we don't really use it anymore. If they'd created kind of more of a, and this is going to be my opinion, one way they could have done it, but if they created more of like a reason for that, like maybe a negative character, maybe some sort of like disease, some sort of something that was impacting the world that they would have had to overcome over the course of this journey, not just bring their dad back, that would have added deeper stakes and it would have added more understanding of like, well, why can't they use magic instead of just being like, well, they're just lazy, because that's such a blank, like simple, like, oh, well, we're lazy, so we don't use these amazing powers that we can just like float in the air and shoot fireworks and make Cheetos ginormous.
Right.
It's like, okay, it's hard.
Yeah.
We're tired. Some people, like, you're telling me, I mean, I know, even with, like, if you look at the world of gamers, the people that literally spend like hours and hours and hours and hours of day doing something that a lot of people would probably consider very tedious, just grinding with games over and over again. There would be people out there that would be so good at magic.
Yeah.
Like they would have it down, like here's the angle, here's the...
Yeah.
So it didn't really fly to me.
Okay.
That was more of like, that's jumping straight into like a real negative for me of the film.
I'm curious as to what you thought were more like the mediocre things or the mediocre bad things.
I thought the familial relationship was good. I think that was stronger in the third act, like you said, but it was kind of more of a negative. I felt like all of the antagonists, in a certain sense of the film, were kind of just, Yeah. It never really felt like there was any like actual like dangerous stakes. I never for a second thought like, wow, they could actually like fail in their journey here. It just kind of felt like here's the next set piece for them to overcome. And they were interesting set pieces.
Yeah, totally.
But it just kind of all felt very like overly simplistic. There were some questions that I kind of thought were like funny, but also weird at the same time. I like the Manticore and I like that. I think the A plot of the story was good. It was a little bit above average with like something like this, a kid's film, but there was no real secondary, third, fourth kind of stories. They had a kind of a mini thing going on with like the Manticore and their mom kind of going on their own little mini journey and trying to find them. But that was like such a impactful like part of it. It just felt like we have a plot with the barest basic of like why they're going on this. But I would do that. Like it was understandable. Like what they were doing, why they were doing it, all made sense. Yeah. And I felt connected to their journey. But it just felt very basic.
There's a scene, and this may have been my favorite scene, because here's the one thing, I'll put in the like kind of good but like mediocre side of things, is I didn't think it was as funny as it could have been.
Yeah.
There were several times I kind of smiled.
Yeah. There was 2 times I laughed out loud.
Yeah, there was one time in particular I laughed out loud throughout like a good 10, 15 second part of it, and involved somebody getting pulled over.
Oh yeah.
And
I think the whole theater laughed.
I was like, dude, that was really good.
Yeah. There was 2 parts. That would be the other middle thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't funny.
It wasn't as funny. Right. Especially if you think of like the talents of Chris Pratt, and it's like, he's like a funny guy, but that's just a scripting thing more than anything. But that kind of falls in the middle ground for me, I think, for sure.
Yeah. I think what I can say that it did well, like in the third act, is it led up to a satisfying, like, come together conclusion where it really resonated. And that's Pixar's thing. If they can pull that off, they're still going to win a lot in my book. And it did that for me. It still resonated. I still felt like emotionally connected with what was going on. But it felt like the journey, like if you look at a thing like Coco, like everything felt very motivated. It felt very like realistic and interesting. There felt like there was nuance and detail to the world, and each character kind of had their own, in a sense, felt like a mini story arc. This one kind of just felt like they were going from set piece to set piece to set piece, and then it all just kind of came together in the end in a very satisfying way.
Yeah.
So it didn't leave me. It's not like a film that like I'm like, oh yeah, let's go watch Onward. Whereas like with Coco, or even like Toy Story 4, I'm like, yeah, there's like stuff there that's going to resonate with me each time that I watch the film.
Right.
You know, not just the humor, but the characters and the story as it develops out.
Totally.
So yeah, I think
gotcha.
I'm glad that they made it, but I'm also kind of like, Pixar, I think you can do better. You know,
I don't know. I liked it more. I think I liked it more than you, but I think that I think it's going to resonate with different people based on not personal preference, but life experiences.
Yeah.
Brothers. I'm curious how they're, the recognized lost people's relationship with their fathers. I think it's going to hit people differently.
Yeah. Having lost my father, not to be all emotional, but like I get that.
Yeah.
And it definitely resonated with me.
Sure.
It just felt like I wish they had earned it a little more with their story. I feel like they didn't really do enough to really like go in the directions. It's like they had a whole series of like, well, they have to get this stone.
Yeah.
Well, why are the stones? Where do the stones come from? Why are they so powerful? Like, well, they have these wizard staffs. That's like, well, where do the staffs come from? Why are they so powerful? Where does magic come from? Why is magic being there? Like, there's just a lot of questions that were like just thrown out there that had no answer.
That's
like answer without a question.
That's a part of what I was saying with the world building. I don't think it was as deep as it needed to be, or as thought out or written out into the story as it could have been.
Well, and the excuse that I ended up coming up with, and it's never good for me with this type of thing, is like, well, it's for kids, and that's never good. But that's what it felt like. It literally felt like, well, it's for kids, so we don't want to interject too much of like, fantasy world with,
I hope that's not
Merlin
the thought, because it's heavy. It gets heavy
of the
at
sister
times.
Of the I don't know.
So, I gotcha. What are you going to rate it?
I'm actually going to give it. I've thought a lot about this. I'm giving it a 79.
Oh.
So it's maybe a little lower or something.
I'm going to give it an 85, a B.
Okay.
So one thing I want to make clear, and I think I might just start saying the numbers and just or saying the letters and have the numbers, is when somebody says, if I say 85%, I'm like, wow, that's really good. But I'm actually, anything below a 50 or 60 is failing to me. So that's kind of the zero. So B,
okay,
I'll go solid B. You're going C plus?
Yeah. C plus seems like a fair one to this. It felt like they worked hard on it, but not really.
Yeah.
Like, I'm borderline B minus.
Maybe that's why I didn't market it as strong, Maybe they got me like, well, you can't just make this, maybe it wasn't to their quite their standards. So they're probably going to start rocking soul marketing really, really soon.
Yeah, I mean, soul looks inventive. Like, it kind of looks like
that's a tough subject. I'm really curious.
Inside Out, but
I am so curious to see how they're going to do that.
Coco and Inside Out kind of had their own film.
I know,
like
weird.
Baby. But it's made by the same people that I think made those ones, I think. At least Inside Out. I don't know if they made Coco, but... Well, Pixar did in general.
Yeah.
But like this director, I believe, he did Monsters University.
Yeah.
Which was also another one that I felt similarly the same way.
Yeah.
Like it had a good conclusion.
Yeah.
Everything leads to a good conclusion, but the build up to it is just very cookie cutter.
Yeah, totally.
So, I don't know. I was hoping for more from Tom Holland and Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
I felt like they could have been. They were really good brothers.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that they didn't have a good brother dynamic, but like I was just hoping for more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, also, there's a scene that if you're a fan of Shadow of the Colossus, that I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of like Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Anyways,
there might have been some things like that I kind of missed that were deeper. But anyway. All right, Matt, why don't you tell us about your second film that you had a chance to see, a film called
I got a chance to see The Call of the Wild. So real quick, sled dog struggles for survival in the wilds of the Yukon. That's a description. It's also based on a book that came out a long time ago. Directed by Chris Sanders, written by Michael Green, Jack London. Stars the one and only Roger Rabbit. I mean, CGI dog, and Harrison Ford, like, Omar Sy, Karaji, and get this, Dan Stevens is in this movie.
Really?
And then Bradley Whitford. Yes, Dan Stevens. I was shocked when I saw him on the screen. I was like, that's Dan Stevens. And let me tell you about that. So anyways, I went into this movie not expecting a lot of it because all the marketing was, look at Harrison Ford and this computer-generated dog.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no interest to see this movie. Yeah. I went into it and it didn't exceed any of my low expectations. So
You set it up beautifully.
Right.
I always thought you were going to be like, and it was amazing.
no, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was just an okay movie.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford's great. Dan Stevens is like a cartoon villain.
Oh boy.
He's not CGI. I'm saying he's
I was
like
gonna say,
he plays like he's like a
CGI
cartoon.
Dan Stevens too.
So, let me tell you what I liked about
Just
it.
have an entirely CGI movie except for Harrison.
I like
which would
Harrison
be
Ford.
They should do the opposite because
Yeah.
he's probably the easiest to direct when he's CGI.
I liked Harrison Ford. I liked all the visuals except for the CGI dog.
Okay.
Like it had some pretty good cinematography, some like stuff like, wow, that's really beautiful, that place that they're at.
Yeah. I will say this before you get, I shouldn't say it probably, but like I understand why they went with a CGI dog, to be honest. Notoriously, animals are difficult to work with on set. And I hear as well, like I love Harrison Ford as an actor, but I hear he can be very difficult to work with. So I feel like you want to have one difficult thing to work with, let's make that Harrison Ford instead of the dog. Because we can just have a CGI dog. Because I feel like Harrison would be the guy like, the dog's not listening. All right, well, I'm going to be in my trailer.
Yeah.
Come get me when the dog's finally willing to listen.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. My thing is, every time I saw that dog, I was like, this is like, I don't know. I was just taken out of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I was like, this just looks goofy. The dog is emoting more than the animals in like The Lion King did, and I'm just like, it's a cartoon dog.
It's not a high bar to pass.
No,
those animals did not emote.
No, what I'm saying is that like it shouldn't have been emoting like it did.
Yeah, I gotcha. It should have just been like a dog.
Yeah, it should have just been a dog doing a thing, and I was just like, oh my gosh. But and also I wasn't a fan of the end of this movie. I'd never read the book. Like, for example, I know my dad's a big fan of it.
Did he pick up the phone? The call of the wild?
Yes, the phone of nature called.
That's where he was headed, just trying to find the phone.
Yes, exactly. But I don't know. I was just kind of okay. The dog part was weird. Dan Stevens, okay, so let's talk about Dan Stevens. He's like the antagonist in this movie. And he's like literally a mustache curler. I'm a bad guy because I'm just a terrible guy, like that's it. And I was shocked. Like I said earlier, when I saw him, I was like, Dan Stevens, you're better than this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was weird. It was what's really funny too is I give them a hard time about the CGI dog, but all of the other animals are CGI and they look awesome.
That's weird.
I was like, there's like some close up of CGI wolves.
Yeah.
And they looked real.
Yeah. My assumption is they probably outsourced different elements, and the dog probably was one that just one studio did.
Yeah.
And they had to do the most
probably
work.
Sent the rest to Weta or something.
Right. And they, you can animate briefly something really to look really great if it's only on screen for like maybe 5-6 scenes versus an entire film of animating something.
And it was also
a lot more work.
Let's talk about verisimilitude for a second, because I feel like the world did not set up a good. It's supposed to be like this, based on like real like gold rush time, like real world type of life. But then you have this animated dog doing cartoon things. Like in the very opening scene of the movie, he's running through. You see this in the trailer, but he's running through a house. And this dog probably weighs maybe 150 pounds, but he'll like go bounding down a hallway in a house, and like all of the like vases like fall over, like just from the weight of the thud on the phone. Like, first of all, he'd have to weigh like 500 pounds for to to do that. Or like he'd jump on like someone's bed, and literally the bed, you see the bed mattress fly up into the air and the person fly off of it. Like,
oh geez.
I'm like, it's just like this really weird cartoon.
Physics and
it's like a half, it's like a half cartoon, half real world. Like, I was so confused. Like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Like, I was like, this is just weird. But anyways, that may not have bothered people. It's getting generally good reviews. It just didn't. I just didn't resonate with it. I didn't think the ending was very strong. And that's it. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a 74, a C.
C.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's okay.
This generated no internal drive to like watch it.
Yeah, neither did I, but I had to see the movie.
Yeah. So maybe I'll check it out at some point.
Yeah.
See
it's all good.
See what it's all about.
Dun, dun.
Dum dum. All right, cool. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up then on the podcast.
Yeah.
Again, some ways to get connected if you're looking to do so. You can check us out on our website, which is reelreviewmedia.com. We also have Facebook, which is facebook.com/ that's /reelreviewmedia or / whatever. I don't know. / right?
Slashy /
Yes, / Real Review Media. We also have Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. And then last but not least, we would love to hear your thoughts, input, perspective. reelreviewmedia@gmail.com is the way to do so.
Yep.
We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your input. We value that, and we enjoy reviewing stuff, and so we love to hear other people's reviews and thoughts on stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, shoot us an email. Any other thoughts? Any final input, Matt?
I'm going to go see The Hunt this weekend. I'm really excited about that. It's being touted as the most talked about movie that hasn't come out yet in its marketing.
I have not heard a lot about it, but I have heard that
people are angry about it
about it
that haven't seen it.
Yes.
So. People are judging a book by cover. Literally, that's what that is like. Yes.
Well, there we go.
Yep.
All right. Well, then, it's been real.
It's been real.